Hello! Loser Stanley once again gets into trouble and is now unfairly taken away from home to be re-educated in a labor camp. His grandfather assures him that it is all because of a family curse passed on from father to son, but this gives him no consolation, as nobody has yet told him how to break it. Now humble Stanley will have to survive in the Texas desert among juvenile delinquents, though very soon he will realize that this is his destiny and the chance he has been waiting for all his life. In the middle of the desert, teenagers dig holes with shovels under the supervision of adults. A boy named Barfbag sees a rattlesnake and gets close to it, not responding to his friend's warnings. He begins to tease the snake with his foot, and his adventure ends with a poisonous bite. Meanwhile, unlucky teenager Stanley Yelnats IV gets caught up in another mess. Unbeknownst to him, sneakers with a big red cross, the symbol of the famous baseball player Clyde Livingston, of which the boy is a big fan, fall right on his head. He happily runs home with them, but on the way, the police see him and accuse him of theft. They take Stanley home, where his strange family, consisting of his mother, father, and grandfather, lives. The officers see an apartment littered with sneakers, but it's actually part of his family's lifelong project to invent a cure for foot odor. The final straw is the posters of the athlete above Stanley's bed. The conclusion is obvious. When the visitors leave, the grandfather tells them that it's all because of Stanley's ancestor, nicknamed Pig Lover, put a curse on the family.
Don't send that song not at my table.
Ma, relax. I don't believe in the curse anyways.
During the trial, it turns out that Livingston gave away his sneakers to orphans as charity. This, of course, does not make Stan look good in the eyes of the judge, who sentences him to a juvenile labor camp, where one spot has just become available. Turns out that Camp Green Lake is located in the middle of the desert. Along the way, Stanley sees a strange vision of a dark-skinned man from the past leading a horse-drawn cart. Upon arrival, he is brought to a man named Mr. Sir. Stanley can barely contain his laughter, although his name also turns out to have a funny side to it.
Everyone in my family names their son Stanley because it's Yelnats backwards.
Mr. Sir explains that there are almost no guards here, and he carries a gun to protect himself from yellow-spotted lizards. The camp is an oasis, and it is called Green Lake because the local desert is the bottom of a dried-up lake.
Here, you know why? We got the only water for 100 miles.
Every day, as a form of labor therapy, the convicts have to dig a hole as deep as a shovel, despite the scorching sun and the rattlesnakes. But they are not as frightening as the yellow-spotted lizards, whose bite brings an excruciatingly painful death. The teens are promised that if they find something interesting, they can earn a day off. Dr. Pendansky, the camp counselor, shows up and informs them of the main local rule: don't piss off the mysterious head warden, who Mr. Sir is an assistant to. They meet 3 other teenagers, X-Ray, Squid, and Armpit, who call the psychologist Mom. Stanley is assigned a place in their tent on the bunk that belonged to Barfbag. There, he also meets Magnet and Zigzag, as well as Zero, who doesn't talk to anyone. Because of this, Pendansky considers him mentally handicapped. Armpit is assigned to be Stanley's mentor, and he quickly teaches him the local customs.
It's not Theodore. It's Armpit.
The workday begins. The boys shovel the dry earth in the heat day after day, covering their hands with horrible blisters. Only Zero likes to swing the shovel and always finishes the job faster than anyone else. Stanley feels sorry for himself and remembers his grandfather's stories about a curse that has apparently affected him too. It all started at the Latvian village with his ancestor, Stanley Yelnats. He was shoveling manure out of Morris Menke's barn and fell in love with his daughter Mira. Elya went to Madame Zeroni, a fortune teller, for advice. The woman tried to talk sense into him, as Mira was very stupid, just like her father. She advised him to instead seek his happiness in America, where her son had already gone. But Elya did not listen to her and went to Morris to ask for his daughter's hand.
Igor Barkov has offered his fattest pig for her.
What do you got?
To win Mira, Madame Zeroni advised Elya to take a young piglet, carry it up the mountain every day, and give it spring water so that it would grow and become stronger. While doing this, the boy should sing him a song, the same song Stanley's father and grandfather were singing at the dinner table.
Only if only the woodpecker sighs. The bark on the tree was as soft as the sky.
After the pig grows up and exchanges it for the bride, Elya must take Madame Zeroni herself to the same mountain and sing the song while she drinks from the spring. And if he forgets to do so, the fortune teller will curse him and the entire Yelnats lineage. Everything happened as Madame Zeroni had foretold. And when Elya put his pig against Igor's, Mira's father let his daughter choose who she liked better, young Elya or Fat Old Igor. But the girl could not make up her mind and wanted to cast lots, which offended Elia, and in anger, he renounced his proposal. He left everything behind and went to America, having forgotten to do one small thing.
You and your family will be cursed for always and eternity.
And now, his sunburnt great-grandson is the last one to finish digging the hole before returning to camp in the late afternoon, where Mr. Sir saves him from an attack by a yellow-spotted lizard. Stanley writes a letter to his mother, in which he exaggerates how much he likes it at camp. They spend all day at the lake, and he will soon be water skiing. And the local animals are very interesting. One day, Stanley discovers a fossil with an ancient fish in it, but it's not enough to get time off. X-Ray says they've been working for nothing for 6 months without finding anything, so it wouldn't be fair for a newbie to make the first find. So now, Stanley has to give over all the finds to him first. Pendanski explains that in addition to the lake, there used to be an entire town on this site, whose mayor was an ancestor of the camp director. In the break room, Stanley, because of his clumsiness, almost gets into a fight with one of the most aggressive and dangerous inmates. And for that, he is given the nickname Caveman. Members of this tribe were famous for their fearless warriors.
Caveman?
It's better than barf bag.
Stanley also becomes friends with Zero, who turns out to be able to talk, but only has conversations with the boy, except that Zero doesn't know how to read. Another day, Stanley finds a strange object at the excavation that looks like a bullet with the initials KB, but has to give it to X-Ray, who gives it to Mom the next morning. Warden Lou, a stern and bossy woman, arrives. She praises X-Ray and gives him time off, and stays around to oversee the excavation. But since X-Ray has concealed the true location of the find, Stanley's pit, there is nothing but sand and rocks to be found. The backstory of the town on the lake involves the mayor's son, Trout Walker, an ancestor of Warden Lou, proposing to Miss Catherine, a schoolteacher, to be his wife. But the woman was in love with onion salesman Sam, an African-American who, when advertising his product, claimed that the smell of the vegetable repels yellow-spotted lizards.
I'll fix that roof in exchange for 3 jars of your spiced peaches.
Sam also helped repair the woman's school and kissed her. But when the townspeople, led by Trout, found out about the lovers' relationship, they burned the school to the ground. And Sam on his boat, the Mary Lou, was chased down and killed by Trout. The sheriff didn't try to stop the injustice.
Give me a kiss. You kiss the onion picker.
You're drunk!
In retaliation, Catherine killed him and left a lipstick kiss on the sheriff's cheek. So the former teacher became the legendary criminal, Kissing Kate Barlow, who put her red mark on those whose lives she took. Stanley had heard of her. His great-grandfather had been attacked by her, but had miraculously survived. One day, Zigzag steals some seeds from Mr. Sir's car. Luck is not on Stanley's side again, and he gets accused of the theft. Sir brings the boy to Lou's house, who has Kissing Kate's poster on her wall. The warden does not believe that Stanley stole the seeds and lets him go. Instead, she punishes Mr. Sir with a fingernail swipe on the cheek. Her nails are painted with homemade snake venom varnish. While Stanley was away, Zero visibly deepened his hole.
Hey, Zero. Why'd you dig my hole, man?
You just steal the sunflower seeds.
Yeah, but neither did you.
The boy believes Stan didn't steal the sneakers either, and they agree that in exchange for some of his work, Zero will get reading lessons. After the hit from his boss, Mr. Sir is left with huge scars, and he takes his anger out on Stanley by depriving him of water. Zero shares water from his flask with him, and together they realize that they have found a lipstick with the initials Kate Barlow in the pit. Zero also reveals his real name, Hector Zeroni. The guy turns out to be an orphan. He had been living with his mother, who just didn't come back one day, so he had to wander and sleep in ditches. If he had money, he would do anything to find her. After Pendanski once again mocks Hector for his lack of brains, the guy can't take it anymore and knocks him out with a shovel, fleeing into the desert. No one is planning to look for him.
He had nobody. He was nobody.
I want you to destroy his records.
Zero is replaced by a new offender, who is immediately nicknamed Twitch because of his tics. He was placed in the camp because of his propensity to steal cars. After a couple of days, securing Twitch's support, Stanley tries to steal Mr. Sir's water truck to find Zero, but doesn't manage to get far, and the car flies to the bottom of the pit. The guy manages to get out of it and escapes on his own 2 feet after his missing friend. Sir worries that the Yelnats family might make a fuss, but Lou orders him to only report the escapee in 2 weeks.
And then, there'll be nothing left to find.
That's exactly right.
Stan, on the other hand, finds Zero hiding under the remains of Sam's wrecked boat, the Mary Lou. He has been surviving on cans of sploosh, Miss Catherine's canned peaches, which she used to pay Sam for his work. The supplies are running low, and Stanley offers to return to camp, but Zero flatly refuses. After looking around, the boys see God's Thumb Mountain, the one Stanley's grandfather told them about, which is where the Yelnats' ancestor was rescued after Kissing Kate robbed his stagecoach and left him to die in the desert. They decide to climb to the very top and crawl up the steep slopes, where Zero saves Stanley from falling at the cost of injuring his arms. Before long, from fatigue, he falls without strength, and Stanley takes him on his back and carries the boy to the top, where they find an onion field and a spring of water that saves them from death. Out of joy, Stanley begins to hum the family song and unknowingly fulfills a promise made by his ancestor to Madame Zeroni. He breaks the family curse. For Hector Zeroni is a direct descendant of the fortune teller. That same night, the father of the Yelnats family accidentally drops peaches and onions into a saucepan and thus creates the odor-eliminating remedy he has been searching for all his life.
Ooh, I don't smell anything.
We don't smell anything.
In the morning, Hector reveals that he was the reason Stanley was sent to the Green Lake camp. At the time, the boy was living in an orphanage where a charity auction was to be held. When he saw one of the lots, the pair of cool sneakers, Hector stole them because they looked like new, unlike the clothes usually given to the homeless. When he put them on and left, he heard screams and howling sirens, so he quickly removed the evidence and threw them off the bridge, and they landed right on Stanley's head. Soon, the lawyer hired by the Yelnats family arrives at the camp. The woman delivers the news that the judgment has been overturned and the teenager freed, and is outraged that he cannot be found. In the evening, the fugitives see a shovel of stars in the sky, and Stanley, feeling lucky for the first time in his life, suggests going to look for treasure in the hole where he had found Kissing Kate's lipstick. Before her death, the woman had indeed buried something in the desert. Even though Trout Walker demanded her under threat of death to reveal the treasure's location to him, Kate only cursed his entire lineage to eternal search. After which, she let a yellow-spotted lizard bite herself and died. Stanley and Zero find the right hole and unearth the chest. Lou and Mr. Sir spot the fugitives and try to retrieve the treasure, when suddenly, a swarm of deadly lizards climbs right on top of the boys. After sitting in this position all night, the company is discovered by Stanley's lawyer and the prosecutor she brought in to check the camp for violations. Lou attempts to lie that the trunk belongs to her and again accuses Stanley of stealing it. Out of indignation, the boys come out of the pit and the lizards leave them alone because of the smell of onions. And Hector reads aloud the inscription on the trunk, Stanley Yelnats. It was in the trunk from his great-grandfather's stagecoach that the robber had put the treasure. At the camp, the prosecutor points out a bunch of violations. It turns out that Mr. Sir has no right to bear arms and has been in jail. Mom is not a real psychologist. And Lou will be convicted of illegally detaining Hector, as she destroyed all documentation on him. The lawyer invites Stan to get in the car.
I can't leave without Hector.
I'll be okay.
The friends will not be separated and will leave together. And suddenly, for the first time since the day of the injustice against Sam and Catherine, a downpour falls over the valley. Lou, who was forced to dig holes all her childhood by her grandfather, begs Stanley to show her the contents of the trunk.
Just let me see what's inside it, please.
Excuse me?
And inside is a huge fortune. Everything Kissing Kate has managed to loot in her lifetime. Stanley decides that half the money should go to Hector, and the guy uses his share to hire private detectives who find his mother alive and well. The Green Lake camp is closed, and all its inmates are sent home. And the deodorant that Stanley's father called Sploosh has become very popular, and is now advertised by Livingston, the famous baseball player. The Yelnats and Zeroni families have bought luxury homes next to each other and spend great time together. As always, you can find the title of the movie in the description of the video. In the meantime, let us know in the comments. Do you believe that children repeat the fate of their parents? And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like this video so more awesome stories come out as often as possible.